Hey everyone, Max at 343 Labs here. Today I'd like to show you a clip by one of our instructors, John Selway, where he shows you how to make techno using a Max for Live granular synthesis device. Now this clip is taken from 343 TV, which airs multiple times per week right here on this YouTube channel. If you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe, and let's get into it.
Right, and so this is what emit is doing, and let's take a look at this. Right, so it's a granular synthesizer. Granular synthesizers are usually samplers, sample based, not always. So I've dropped in a sample in here, and I started with a bright, thick, heavy sound, and that's giving me a brighter, thicker, heavier output rather than these pretty little whatever, like dainty sounds we've been hearing so far. So what you're seeing here, this kind of a spectrum, a spectral kind of overview of the frequencies in the sample. That's at 100% length, right? So you're able to, in real-time time stretch, you can modulate this. This is actually stretching. If I reduce the percentage, it's going to stretch out the length of that sample. And you can see there's this little blue dot, which is basically a grain. That's every time I'm controlling this from Midi, and each time there's a note, it's starting at the spot where this orange square is, and then it's moving in a direction that I've chosen. Right, and similar to the way the Midi bouncing thing was working, where we can control like how it bounces and whether it's affected by gravity or not. Here we have force, which is how fast the force with which it is emitted, right? This grain starts and moves, and then friction is how much resistance it meets as it moves. So like right now, if I do a higher force, you're going to see it move faster through the sample. And you can also see that it's bouncing. So when it hits the edge of the window, it's bouncing back. I can also make it wrap, so it's just going to keep going in the same direction and go back to the beginning. Let's go back to bounce. So it's just bouncing around that square. And depending on the length, you're going to get more or less variation in that sound. You can hear that it's kind of a bass pluck that fades away. So as that grain gets closer to the end where there's less going on, it gets quieter, darker, right? If I go more towards the beginning of the sound, it's a lot brighter because it's staying at the onset where the most is happening. All right, and then there's the friction, is the resistance it meets. If I reduce the friction to 0, it's going to never slow down and move just all the time, same rate. If I make the friction all the way up, it stops it. So you're going to hear a little bit of movement and then it stops. This sound needs a compressor on it. It's all, the levels are all over the place. That sounds crazy. A little loud now. All right. So you can hear some potential here. This is just one sample and one example of this interesting kind of physics-based modulation of a granular synthesizer. And then the spectral part of it is, you're able to like choose where in the sample, what part of the frequency range of that sample you're hearing, and there's a filter. So, the grain has a filter, and you can kind of choose how narrow or wide that is, and have the resonance. And you're going to hear, as that grain moves around, it's going to change what the filter frequency is. Avon Stade asked, is there any bass or is it just the kick? Yeah, I just picked an easy kick drum that has like that rolling rumble in it. I didn't do any sound design on the kick. I just oh, that sounds good, and dropped it in there. And all right, the other thing that's happening here is I'm not actually sending MIDI to this. So if you go back to emit, MIDI is off, and I have it set to 1 burst. So that's 1 time for it to emit. And there's a rate of 1B, which is 1 bar. I could make it go faster if I want. Let's go. And you can hear it's going every quarter note. And then the lifetime is how long it can last after. Let's make that shorter. You hear that it doesn't really vary after a quarter note, it just restarts. Now, another thing I want to point out here, I don't know if this is a beta thing, still in development thing, not quite ready thing, but there's a delay with this synth. Like there's a, especially when you're controlling it with MIDI, no matter what I have in terms of plugins or buffer settings, I never was able to get it to quantize perfectly. So like you'll hit a note and then it'll happen a little bit later. Actually, let's demonstrate that. And I'm hoping that this is something that either I'm doing it wrong or they need to fix it. But basically, all right, I'm going to turn MIDI on. All right. And you can, when MIDI note pitch is on, you can play it like a regular keyboard. I'm going to turn that off, so it's just going to play the original pitch of the sample. Let's hear what it sounds like. You can hear that the note is perfectly quantized, but it's happening late. So maybe it's just, this is a very CPU intensive thing. Maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe something with the plug-in delay compensation needs to be adjusted. I'm actually using the track delay to make it tighter. So anyway, that was just a little caveat there that it's really hard to get this thing to be really tight in terms of timing, and maybe that's something that will get worked on.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget 343 TV goes live right here on our YouTube channel several times per week. And if you want to learn more about music production or just want to join our community, you can find more information at 343labs.com or 343labs.de for our German website. See you next time.